In 1917, during First World War, two soldiers named Schofield and Blake are woken up by a sergeant while resting under a tree. The sergeant tells Blake to choose another soldier and report to their superior. Blake picks Schofield, and they start walking through the trenches, not sure what task they've been given. Blake hopes they'll be back home by Christmas. They reach General Aaronmoor's place. He gives them a very important task. They need to cross through an area that used to belong to the Germans. The Germans have pulled back, and they have to deliver a crucial message to Colonel Mackenzie. He's leading British troops who are chasing after the retreating Germans to attack them. Aaronmoor warns that it's a trap, and the British soldiers will be wiped out. Blake is chosen because his brother is with the troops, heading into danger. Despite the risk, Blake is determined to save his brother, so he agrees to the dangerous mission right away. Blake and Schofield don't waste any time and start their journey through the trenches. They eventually find Lieutenant Leslie and tell him about their mission to cross over. Leslie thinks it's crazy but still gives them guidance on how to navigate through the old German territory. He even provides them with a flare gun to signal if they manage to survive the journey. Blake and Schofield trek through the deserted battlefields, dodging wire and trudging through muddy trenches. They encounter a huge trench filled with mud and bodies. Schofield's hand gets stuck in spiked wire, causing a serious injury. He wraps it up and they continue forward. Finally, they manage to cross the treacherous terrain and reach the deserted German trenches. They enter the underground area and discover that the German barracks are deserted and infested with rats. While exploring, Blake notices a tripwire. Before they can react, a rat triggers the wire, setting off a massive explosion that buries them underground. Schofield is completely buried, but Blake manages to wake him up and help him escape before the barracks collapse entirely. Once they're out, Schofield angrily questions why Blake chose him for this mission. Blake admits he thought it was just a simple food run and never imagined it would be such a dangerous task. He fires off the flare to signal their survival. They go on and come across a peaceful green area. Schofield mentions they might get a medal for their mission. Blake agrees, mentioning it'll be a nice replacement since Schofield lost his previous one. Surprised, Schofield corrects him, saying he traded it for wine. Blake is shocked he didn't keep the medal, but Schofield explains he didn't like being reminded of the war. They stumble upon cherry blossoms, which Blake recognizes because of his mother's orchard, where he and his brother used to pick cherries. They stumble upon a house in the field. They check it, but it's empty. Schofield discovers a crow and some fresh milk, which he drinks. Suddenly, they witness a dogfight between British and German planes. The British manage to shoot down a German plane, which crashes toward them. They narrowly escape as it crashes, but they find the German pilot still alive. Schofield suggests ending his suffering, but Blake insists on giving him water. While Schofield is helping the pilot, the German unexpectedly attacks Blake, stabbing him in the gut. In desperation, Schofield shoots the German and tries to save Blake, but it's too late. Blake is bleeding profusely and asks Schofield to promise to write to his mother, reassuring her that he wasn't scared. Schofield promises him and vows to complete the mission before Blake passes away. More British soldiers arrive, led by Captain Smith. He informs Schofield that they're passing through and can accompany him part of the way to his destination. Captain Smith advises Schofield not to dwell on the loss of his friend. Schofield hops into a truck with some lively soldiers. When the truck gets stuck in the mud, he leads them in pushing it free. Afterward, he shares the details of his mission with them. Schofield is dropped off near a river that he needs to cross the broken bridge to reach his destination, but he comes under gunfire. He manages to rush into the building where the shooter is, and they engage in a shootout. Schofield kills the German, but he's struck in the helmet and knocked unconscious. When Schofield wakes up, it's dark, and the town is ablaze with fires. He dodges gunfire as he rushes through the burning streets. Finally, he finds refuge in a building where he encounters Laurie, a frightened woman who speaks only French. Schofield speaks French and assures her he's not German. Laurie helps tend to some of his wounds and reveals she's looking after a baby. Schofield shares some of his milk with the baby, and Laurie explains she doesn't know who the baby's parents are. She pleads with him to stay, but Schofield knows he must continue his mission. He heads back into the chaos of the firefight, having to fight and flee to survive. Dodging bullets, he leaps off a cliff into a river, struggling to stay afloat. Eventually, the river calms, and he reaches the shore, where he breaks down in tears. Schofield keeps going until he hears singing and finds a group of soldiers listening to one of their own singing. He joins them for a moment before asking a soldier about the second. The soldier confirms they're the ones he's looking for, following the larger group. Schofield rushes ahead into the trenches, desperately trying to warn them not to proceed with the attack. But it's too late. The battle has begun, and the first wave of soldiers is sent out. Realizing he needs to reach Mackenzie quickly, Schofield decides to run sideways across the active battlefield instead of taking the trenches. Miraculously, he survives and makes it back into the trenches. He finds Colonel Mackenzie, who initially refuses to listen, convinced they're on the brink of victory. Schofield pleads with him to read the letter, and eventually, Mackenzie does. Upon reading it, he orders his men to stand down. Schofield searches through the medical tents until he finds Blake's brother, who miraculously is unharmed. He delivers the heartbreaking news about Blake and hands over some of Blake's belongings that he had with him. Although devastated, Blake's brother gathers himself and urges Schofield to get some food. Schofield asks if he can write to their mother, and Blake's brother agrees. He reveals that Blake saved his life. They shake hands, and Schofield goes to sit under a tree. He takes out photos of his wife and children, gazes at them, then closes his eyes. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.